How's it going, y'all? And I will remove that. And now you see my full name is Tozendo Nozendo Rosendo. If you were joining us for GHW Daily earlier, but yeah, pleasure to see y'all today. My actual name is Rosendo from Major League Hacking. We have a huge treat in store for all of you today. Basically, what's going to be happening is we are going to be looking at infrastructure as a code from someone who is actually, like, for all intents and purposes, a Linux expert. But not to worry if you're not on Linux. This workshop is fully supported for all formats, including Mac OS X and Windows, as long as you have WSL installed, or you could follow along using any type of command line tool that you may have used in the past. You could also use the Linode terminal directly on the Linode console. If you are, into that sort of thing, that's also another way you can keep up and follow along with the content that's going to be shared today. So I'm super happy to be introducing Jay LaCroix, the Linux guy, and I'll go ahead and add him to the stream. How you doing, Jay? I'm going to drop off. Thanks for being here.
Good. Awesome. My pleasure. So I'll just give everybody a quick minute to jump in. So just go ahead and make yourself comfortable, get a caffeinated beverage ready. If you don't drink caffeine, then, grab some water. Water's always good. And then we'll get started. So we'll probably get started at 1:03 Eastern time. So about another minute to go. Almost time. There it is. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is show you guys a quick, presentation. Don't worry, it's not long. It's not one of those things that's going to put you to sleep as a lot of the longer ones do. So I'll go ahead and switch over to that. Just bear with me one moment. And you should actually see my presentation on the screen right now. So let's just have you guys confirm you could see it, and then we'll go ahead and go through it. Hello, India. It's always amazing to reach people around the world. It's such a large distance between everyone, but there's no distance at all when you're online. It's seconds. Yep. All right. So I have a confirmation that we can see. So we could go ahead and begin. So my name is Jay with Learn Linux TV, and I'm also doing this presentation in partnership with Linode, who has been awesome enough to set this up with me, and they've been a partner of mine for a while, but more on that in a moment. About me. So there's my extremely outdated photo. We'll pretend that that's newer. Basically, it's like a year old, but anyway, a little bit about me. So I have over 20 years experience working with Linux. It's just one of those things. When I experienced it for the first time, when I saw it for the first time, I knew that Linux was my obsession. Maybe some of you have had that moment where you just kind of know, like, this is my thing. I have so much fun doing this. I really enjoy that. And that was how it went with me. It was somewhere around 2002 or 2001. I'm trying to remember now, somewhere around there. So I've been working with Linux for quite a while, and I've watched it evolve from what it was then, which was not nearly as user-friendly as it is now, to basically taking over the world. Because when I first started, Linux jobs are not all that common. Now, if you actually put the word Linux into a job search site, you'll be surprised how many jobs will come up between that and DevOps. Anyway, continuing. So like I mentioned, I'm the owner and producer of Learn Linux TV. It's been going for about 10 years. At one point, I was working two jobs. I've been working in IT for quite some time and doing Learn Linux TV in tandem. Recently, as of the end of last year, Learn Linux TV is my only thing. So that's what I'm doing and I do nothing but that now. So that is super exciting to me because I watched it grow from something I did in my bedroom to something I'm now doing in a studio. So that's just, I can't even believe this is real. So definitely a pleasure to create these videos. And that's what I do. I create educational content and books as well. So Mastering Ubuntu Server is my latest one. And at Learn Linux TV, there's all kinds of videos out there like tutorials, distribution reviews. I think I have over 870 videos on there. So some of the things that we'll be covering today will be on there. But here's the thing. If I mention something and it's not covered here, it's probably covered there. I have everything you could possibly think of, from videos on Ansible, Python programming, getting started with Linux, running Linux servers, whatever you want to know. And my book, Mastering Ubuntu Server, is doing very, very well. I'm currently writing the 4th edition. Don't tell my publisher that I just reviewed that or just revealed that to you guys, because that's not public yet. So we'll pretend like I didn't say that. But you can get to that book at ubuntuserverbook.com. So I don't know why I have this again. So here's the thing. I am really good at Linux. I am not so great at creating presentations in LibreOffice. So we'll just assume like that didn't happen. So on the bottom there, we have the website for Learn Linux TV. Again, the URL for the book. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I put it here on the presentation, but it's also on the screen as well. So you can see my Twitter handle there. Go ahead and follow me. I usually put out a tweet every time I come out with a new video. So go ahead and check that out. And about Linode. So Linode is a Linux-focused cloud server provider. And I don't know, how familiar some of you are or aren't, but there's many different cloud providers out there, including but not limited to Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, DigitalOcean, Amazon Lightsail, Linode off the top of my head, and I know there's more. Linode has been a partner of Learn Linux TV for quite some time. They were actually the very first sponsor of the channel, so that was a really cool thing to have my first sponsor. That was before the channel was even, a fraction of the popularity that it is today. Some of the features for Linode include, but are certainly not limited to, computing, networking, storage. So when we think of computing, we think of a Linode instance, essentially a virtual machine in the cloud. So if you've ever used VirtualBox locally or maybe even a hypervisor in a data center, then I'm sure you're well aware what virtualization is. But essentially, it's the ability to spin up a computer within a computer. And when it's cloud, it's someone else's computer. I know that they're probably going to hate that I said that, but it's true. You either want to have infrastructure local and, buy the infrastructure, manage the hardware, manage the cooling, or maybe you don't want to do that, or maybe you want a mixed environment of cloud and local. So regardless of your flavor, they can help you out, and they are the official backend for Learn Linux TV. So if you go to the website for my channel, learnlinux.tv, then that's hosted on Linode. So there you go. If you've been to that site, then you've already used Linode in some form. And here I have some more information about my company. And of course, the bullets are going to be out of order because, like I said, I'm really good at Linux, not so good with Office documents. Anyway, Learn Linux TV is an education company that specializes in Linux. And there I produce training and informational content on YouTube. So that's mainly what I do, but that's not all that I do anymore. That was the main gig. But like I mentioned, I'm a partner of Linode. But also, I'm a partner of the Linux Professional Institute as well. That's still a developing thing, so it's kind of still in its beginning stages this year, but I will be creating content on LPI certification. So if you wanted to become certified, then that is something I will be able to help you out with once I have that course finished, which is currently in the scripting stage. And in addition to that, I'll also be creating videos on, LPI's site as well, because why not? Why not create videos on all the sites and spread the learning? Okay, so getting into the content at hand, what is infrastructure as code? So essentially, it's the ability to write code or scripts that define the end result of a system or layout or infrastructure, whatever word you want to use there. When I first started, which I don't think is going to make me sound too old, although it could, depending on your mindset. When you wanted to spin up a server, you couldn't spin anything because you had to carry the server up the stairs and into the data center, put it into the rack, and provision it, install an image or whatever you're going to do there. And that's not to say that you won't still do that, but now that we have virtualization, we have cloud, you may not do that as often. And back then, virtualization was new when I first started. It was one of these cool hocus pocus type things that just seemed so unreal to me when it first came out. That's amazing. Wow, that's so cool. And now it's so common. You can install VirtualBox on your laptop and it's available to everyone. But anyway, nowadays, when you want to create an environment, roll out an app or something like that, chances are you're not going to build it manually, except for the first time when you're just playing around and testing. And there's many reasons why, but we'll get to that in a moment. But you could build servers, apps, full network layouts. For example, we're not going to go over it, but there's something called software-defined networking where you can actually define your subnets, VLANs, networking, all your IP address scheme and everything right there in a text file, essentially a script. And then you can watch what you've written, following the syntax, turn into a real thing, a real server, a real website. It's just an amazing thing to behold, to just execute a script and just, sip some coffee and watch your servers do the work for you. And infrastructure as code is part of the DevOps mindset. So I'm going to leave any debate about DevOps out of this because, some people, they love it, they hate it. I think it's absolutely transformative for the industry. And for those that don't know, DevOps is more or less the when you have an environment where, let's say, your company is developing servers, apps, or whatever, you have a DevOps person or a DevOps team in the middle that's creating servers for the developers, making sure they have things that they need to do their job, and you manage the environments for them. And instead of putting a wall in between you and your developers, you set with them, you're a part of it. And that integration is what actually makes DevOps so great because, silos are often bad. We don't want to put walls where they don't need to be walls. We want to have communication, collaboration. That's a really great thing to do. But why is infrastructure as code important? I think I've mentioned some of the ways here, but my personal favorite is that it increases accuracy. So the way I look at it, if you are doing maintenance on a server, a network, a computer system, you're doing a job, you're rolling out a new app, you're updating an app, you're installing updates, you're installing firmware. There's all kinds of different things that you're going to do. And when you do it manually, spoiler alert, we're all human, actually. So we make mistakes. It happens. Sometimes someone might fat finger something and there's a typo and then everything comes crashing down. It's just the way it goes. We're human. We make mistakes. It's okay. And we learn from those mistakes. But accuracy is really important because I've seen what happens when you don't have attention to detail. So one example of that, and I'll have to censor what I'm saying a bit to, censor the names of the innocent here. But I worked with a company a long time ago, and an individual was in charge of writing software for credit card machines because, believe it or not, those are computers as well. And then the call center started getting calls where everybody that goes into a restaurant or anywhere that has tips or accepts tips, every customer's credit card is being frozen. And the fraud alert is put on there. Why was that? Well, what happened is that, to make the long story short, when you have a credit card machine, you have tips that you accept, then it's going to pre-authorize a tip amount in case you do leave one. And if you don't, the money goes back to your card. But someone put the decimal in the wrong spot, and it was authorizing $3 million tips. So naturally, that's going to raise some flags at credit card processors and your bank, and your card is going to get frozen, especially if you go to a restaurant that, has $10 hamburgers and all of a sudden there's a $3 million charge. That is definitely a cause for alarm. And another example of why automation is important, because if you have, and that's another word for infrastructure as code, we automate things, right? So it increases accuracy. You write the code, you write the scripts, you run them over and over again. You see the end result. You compare the end result with what you want the end result to be. And then if everything is fine and it passes testing, then it rolls out into production rather than putting a decimal in the wrong spot. You definitely don't want to do that. But it's okay because we're human, we learn. It's just the way it is. And, it eliminates manual drudgery. Now, here's the thing. I love setting up servers. It's so much fun. It really is. It's just great. But I don't want to maintain 500 servers manually. It doesn't really matter if your company has like 5 servers. If you have to manually edit those servers and you only have like 5 of them, I mean, is that really a big deal? Probably not. I could still make a case for infrastructure as code there as well. However, some companies have 500 servers, 1,000 servers. So imagine you have to install a piece of software and it needs to be installed on every single server. If you have hundreds of servers, it's going to take you a very, very long time. But with infrastructure as code, you can create the instruction and then it rolls out and then it just carries it out. You just do it one time, and then every server that is being configured by your infrastructure as code solution will actually pick up that change, and it just saves you a ton of work. It's just awesome. And that's the third bullet point. That's another reason why infrastructure as code is important, is because it's freaking awesome. Now, what automation tools are commonly used? Now, there's going to be a bunch, but I think one of the most common is going to be Ansible. Now, Ansible, we're not going to get to that point in this particular session, but it is something that I wanted to mention, and I'll let you know in just a moment where that fits in. But Ansible is pretty much the latest craze when it comes to automation. Ansible uses YAML scripts or YAML files, and inside those files, you include commands, or basically you're creating what's called a task book or a playbook. Actually, that's what they call it because it's, inspired by sports. And the playbook just includes all the actions that's required to make something happen. Ansible, just to keep it short for the explanation, it's super easy. It's probably the easiest one to pick up of all of them, but they all have their pros and cons. Ansible is my personal favorite, but maybe you'll like one of the others. And one of the others is Chef. So Chef pretty much does the same thing as Ansible. Ansible doesn't require an agent on the servers. It just needs, the code on a central server, but the central server uses SSH to connect. We can get into SSH shortly. Chef is a little bit heavier. It includes a app that's installed on the clients, and that could add a bigger footprint. Puppet's pretty much the same thing, different syntax. They all do the same thing. They let you install packages, create files, basically anything you could do on a command line. You could use any of these tools for that. And there's also SaltStack. However, honestly, I have never used SaltStack, so I can't speak about that. I have used the first 3. I have not used SaltStack. So if there's a question about the top 3, I could probably answer it. SaltStack, that's just the one I haven't gotten to yet. Now, let's talk more about the automation tools. Now, we have some additional tools here like Packer. Now, it's very common to have an image that you deploy from. Now, you might wonder, why would I create an image if I'm going to create infrastructure as code scripts to create my environments for me? An image could be a popular thing for a security-minded company, and every company should be security-minded. There could be some security tweaks that you might want built in, and you don't really want there to be a gap in between the server coming online and then the configuration management tool configuring it. You want to make sure that, every second of its life, it has certain things in there. Packer allows you to create images for different platforms, whether it's Linode, AWS. It supports quite a few. So you could use Packer to create an image to start from. So you could have a Debian instance, an Ubuntu instance, whatever Linux flavor you want to go with, and then have Packer create that for you. Terraform is kind of like the next level. We will be going over Terraform in this particular session. We will be seeing that work. Terraform is at a different level because for Terraform, the server has to exist. It doesn't have to be set up. You don't have to have installed anything on it, but it needs to exist. Terraform needs a server to configure. So Packer can make the server exist via an image. Terraform takes the server that now exists, whether you build it manually or you used Packer to build it. Terraform will create the next level of configuration on there. So if you're curious where the split is there, that's where it is. In terms of Ansible, then Ansible is going to be a layer above Terraform, and that's going to be your maintenance. Like you want to install updates or add scheduled tasks, remove a file, add a file. Ansible pretty much keeps everything current. And I have a blank bullet point there. So anyway, those are the systems right there that exist in this realm. So what I'm going to do is switch the camera back over to me for now. Just bear with me. All right. So I saw some questions I'm just going to answer real quick. And as an aside, I might answer some questions here and there while we're doing the presentation, but for the most part, I'll answer most of them afterwards. But I think the biggest question I've seen right now in response to some of the things that I've mentioned here is whether X is hard, whether X is Linux, whether it's Terraform, Ansible. It's really hard to say that something is hard because it really depends on your worldview. And I would say no, it's really not. And here's why, because there's no shortage of documentation like everywhere. So Linux is popular. It may not be on your desktop, or maybe it is, but it's certainly on servers like something like 70%. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. So it has a huge footprint. So there's all kinds of information. If you Google, how do I do something in Linux, you'll find an answer. And I've been, like I mentioned, I've been using Linux for over 20 years. I'm still learning. That's never going to stop. You're never going to reach a point where, unless you're like a superhuman, that I know everything there is to know about this. Like, I don't even think it's humanly possible to know everything about anything. You learn the things that are important to you, what you do, what you use it for, your tools and whatnot, and you just grow with it. So you start small and you kind of build your way up. And the same thing is true when it comes to, Ansible and Terraform. Sometimes it could be frustrating, but anything can be frustrating to learn. And I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but not knowing something is the best thing. Let me say that again. Not knowing something is the best thing, because that gives you the inspiration to go find out about it. So, and if you knew everything, there wouldn't be anything to find out about. There'd be no, you get to a point where you know everything there's to know about your job, and then it's boring because there's nothing new to learn. Well, thankfully, there's always something new to learn. And after 20 years, that has not slowed down a bit. So it might seem when you're starting out, like, how does anybody remember all this? People don't. No one remembers everything. That's just not how it goes. You'll have a note file, you'll have a book by your side. Some things will be muscle memory, but it's not hard. And that goes for any of the other things that I've mentioned as well. So what we're going to do right now is kind of pause and make sure that everybody is able to start. And how you start and how you interact with this presentation is going to depend on your local operating system. It doesn't technically matter, but if you have a Mac, if you're running Mac OS, you have a terminal built in. So if you go to your, forgot what they call it. Seems like they changed the name. I think it's just terminal under the apps. There should be something like, I think it's called utilities. I don't have a Mac in front of me right now, but if you go into Spotlight and search terminal, you'll find it, and it's built in. So there's nothing that you have to install, and you'll have everything you need there. I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit about Git. So it'd be helpful if you had Git installed. It's not required. You can just watch me, and that's totally fine if you can't follow along with that. That was kind of tacked on, to be honest, kind of at the last minute here. So it's not really primarily part of it. I'll go over why I mentioned Git in a moment. But first of all, on Mac, you need a terminal. If you are running a Linux distribution locally on your computer, you already have a terminal there too. Just search your apps for terminal and you're all set. Windows has the Windows services for Linux. That's something you can install that will require a reboot. So whether or not you want to do that is up to you, because you can also use the Linode dashboard and forego any local terminal at all. So if you'd rather not reboot, if you don't have something installed already, that's fine. You could totally just forego everything and work right within Linode's dashboard. So at this point, everybody should have a link to get started with Linode, which will give you free credit that you can use. So I realize at this point, different people might be in a different spot. Maybe you already have it. You already have your account. You've already used the code, and you have it ready to go. Maybe you haven't done that yet. So if you haven't, that's something that I would recommend that you do right now. Just go ahead and get that going. And in the chat, someone asks, what is Linode? That's the cloud server provider. That's going to be the backend for what we're doing here. So there should be a link, and I see it in the comments right now. So if you don't already have your account, then you should be able to use that link to go ahead and create that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pause this and let you guys get caught up. I think 10 minutes or less, maybe 5 minutes after 1:30 or so, we'll resume, just to kind of give everybody a chance to get that. If you have any problems or questions, let me know. And while we're waiting, I can answer questions that I see in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and throw them up. And I see one, someone's mentioning it requires a card. That is a good point. So Linode is a cloud server provider. The $100 in free credit, my understanding is it lasts for 60 days, at which point, whether you've used it or not, it's gone. Just keep that in mind. And it does require a card, because if you use it beyond that time, then it starts to become billable. So at that point, then it would charge you. But as long as you don't actually have anything on your account, after this presentation, it shouldn't matter. So they might authorize, if I remember correctly, $1 on your card, but go ahead and, just let you know. If that's something that, you're unable to do, that's okay. You could follow along with me. I will be showing you everything that I'm doing, and I will be explaining it. So whether you want to follow along and do it yourself or just watch me, I will leave that up to you. But we'll get into some points about Terraform shortly, which is actually what we'll be doing. So, all right. So I guess it lasts for, the share lasts for 12 months. That's good to know for the code. Awesome. Yep. So, yeah, so it's okay. If you can't get an account for whatever reason, you don't have a card or you're not comfortable with that, it's totally fine. You can just follow along and watch along as I do it. You will see the dashboard firsthand. And either way, you will get a look at what this looks like. So we'll just give everybody, like, I don't know, 6-7 minutes or so, make sure everyone is good. So someone asked, are all the files for automation in YAML format? No. So the thing is, YAML was in regards to Ansible, which is not something we'll be covering today. I would love to cover all the tools, believe me. I have some videos on my channel that'll cover Ansible anyway. I have a whole series on that. Terraform is what we're going to be using, and it's a specific format for that, which I will be going over. So what we'll be doing next is, after everybody is caught up with an account, we'll be creating a server manually first, just so you guys can see, what it looks like and what you want to automate, essentially. So we'll be creating a server manually, and then we'll get into the code and see how we would do that with code. So cool. So I have a question. Actually, I see a question that I want to answer first. So YouTube channel link, it's learnlinux.tv. That's the name of the channel and the URL for the website for the channel. So if you go to www.learnlinux.tv, and you'll see the most recent videos there. I have one today that is about what to do if you are running Linux on a desktop laptop and then Wi-Fi isn't working for you. Then I have a video about that. However, you can click on the YouTube icon on that same page to go directly to the YouTube channel. There should be categories on the top of the page where you can go to see different courses that I've done that are available on YouTube. So yeah, definitely check that out. And I do videos every week. So at least one, usually it ends up being about 3 videos a week at this point. So definitely subscribe. Yeah, someone also asked if there's a way to create an account on Linode without the credit card. I don't know. I don't think so, but it's okay. If you can't do that, that's totally fine. No worries at all. You could take notes and watch if you'd like, and it's fine. And then you can, off camera, you can go ahead and try it on your own if you want to. But either way, you should be able to get something out of this, regardless of whether you have the account or not. It's always good, in my opinion, to get hands-on, but if, that's a problem, that's no problem. My question for you guys in the room right now is, for those of you that are, taking classes, which might be all of you, or, a certain amount of you, you're in college or, some kind of school. If you've already been through some of the program, is Git spelled Git, not Get, Git, version control via Git. Is that covered in your list of classes? I am curious because when I received my master's degree in, I think it was 2014, that wasn't covered on any of the programs in the colleges that I was looking at, or the ones that I was going into. So I am just curious about that. Oh no, I was hoping that would have changed. There's a very important reason why I'm bringing this up, and I have to be careful how I mention this, because I don't want to throw any education company under the bus, because that would be horrible. But I have found when I was in school that Git is not covered, and version control in general is not covered. Now, of course, if you're going to school for IT management, right, it's probably fine, because if you're going into management, then you're probably not be the one doing that so often. But if you're going to be touching servers, or using, or especially if you're doing software development, what Git allows you to do is it allows you to basically manage your configuration. And I will, as long as time permits, show you guys a little bit about Git later in this session. But I mention it because regardless of whether or not your school teaches you Git, you should learn Git. Whether you're working on servers, or if you're wanting to be like a software engineer or something like that, especially DevOps, you'll want to learn that. And hopefully schools will start covering that soon, but it is highly recommended, because when you work in the industry in many different IT jobs, you'll either be expected to know it already, or you'll be encouraged to learn it, during your first 90 days or however that company is structured. It's not hard. It's just one of those tools that's very important to know. So. Yep. So collaboration. What are other cloud providers? Someone asked. So other ones include Amazon Web Services, or AWS for short, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Lightsail, which is like a lighter version of AWS. That's another one there. DigitalOcean, if I didn't mention that one already. There's a number of them out there. So those are some of the most common ones. Is there a specific tech stack for DevOps? Usually the most common include containerization, like Docker, Ansible, Terraform. Terraform and Packer are both made by HashiCorp, so they make a number of tools there. Every company will have their own stack, but those are very common. So if you don't see Ansible, you might see Shepherd Puppet, but you'll see one of those. What I would recommend on the side, and we'll resume it here in just a moment, is take a look at job ads. Now, be careful. Don't do this at work, right? Don't go on job sites, job searching on VPN while you're connected to your company, or while you're at the office, in case they're going to ask you, are you looking for a new job? But in your own time, on your own personal computer at home, you can look at DevOps jobs. And what I would say is look at the bullet points that are asked for on those jobs, and write them down or put them in a spreadsheet when you see them, and try to total up how many times you see one. Like maybe you look at a bunch of job ads, you've seen Ansible like 10 times, or maybe Kubernetes 5 times. That'll give you like a really good idea, like what's being spoken for or being asked for, so you know what you should really kind of focus on. And it changes from time to time, but it'll give you a general idea. Again, don't do this at work. They might get the wrong idea. They might think you're about to bail on your company, but in your own time, go on job sites and take a look at that. And I think you'll see a lot of different skills that are fairly common among pretty much most of them. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and continue on. And I will answer more questions later on. So I am going to switch the screen over to my computer, which is what you should see right now. And fun fact, you are actually seeing, this is using the same system that I use for recording YouTube videos, how I'm able to switch the cameras and the camera facing me and the screen recording. If you ever watch any of my videos and I'm showing how to do something, this is the exact same system. So anyway, just a bragging moment there. It has absolutely nothing to do with what we're going over. So what I'm going to do anyway right now is kind of go over Linode in general. So what you're seeing here is the Linode dashboard. The dashboard will, pretty much every cloud provider has one. You can think of the dashboard as like your settings, or you log in, your admin page, your admin console, whatever verbiage you want to use for it, it probably fits. And this is where you go to manage your infrastructure. So here I have like 4 servers right now, and these are just servers I've created for videos that I'm recording, because I'll often create a Linode instance and then, go through the content that I'm teaching on a video. And of course, I don't do a good job about deleting things when I'm done with them. So we'll pretend like I'm better at that than I am. But actually, I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because we see some good details here. We have the IP addresses for these instances here. We could power them off, reboot them. For example, if I wanted to see what would be on the screen if it were a real server, you could imagine going into a server room and plugging in a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. We don't really do that so much anymore, but if you were to do that, you would see this on the screen right here. So here we have a login screen for the server. You can barely see it because the text is small, but it's asking me to log in down here. So servers generally don't have a graphical user environment. They can, and it's okay. Some people do that. But when you get to a certain level, you won't need the GUI anymore. You might kind of need it at first, and that's fine. But later on, you'll probably have muscle memory with enough commands to navigate without needing that. But no judgment either way. But what I just did here is I clicked on the Lish console inside Linode, and this lets you see what's on the screen. And this is exactly what I'm going to have you guys use if you don't have like a local terminal or something to use. And again, if you don't have a Linode account or you were not able to start one, then you could just follow along. But this is the virtual monitor attached to that instance. That's what you're seeing right here. And we'll be looking at that more shortly. Of course, we have some information here like your CPU, disk, network, and all that. So in the industry, we keep our eye on this. If the CPU is topping off, then we probably want to know why. What's going on here? Is it the server just totally going crazy? Like, what's happening? Now, there is one very, 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 very important thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands about servers, because this seems to be something that a lot of people don't know. A super busy server is not always a problem. Now, you might think that it could be, right? If your CPU on your server, which is how busy the server is, let's just say hypothetically it's 80%. You might think, wow, that's going crazy. We should probably look at that and find out if there's something wrong. Now, hold on a moment, though, because that's okay. One time, for example, I had a client come to me. They were kind of upset, not upset, but they were like really concerned, kind of in a panic. Like, yeah, I just looked at the graphs and my server is like 75% utilized all the time. And I'm like, good, awesome. And of course, he looks at me like, what? Wait, what? And I'm like, yeah. You have a server and its job is to do work. If it's 75% busy, it's doing work. If the CPU usage was close to 0%, that would be a real problem, because that means the server's not doing anything. And if it's not doing anything, that means whatever app it's running might have crashed, or it's, you're paying for something that you're not using, which is even worse. So a busy server is not necessarily a problem. Now, if it's 100% utilized all the time, now that is a problem. If it's, I would say, more than 85%, it depends on what you're running. That could be a problem. But I just wanted to give you guys that mindset, because if you adopt that mindset early on, then, you'll have that mindset early on, which is great, because if you have a server, think of it this way. Your server is your worker. It's doing work for you. If it's not doing work for you, then why have it? Moving on. So I'm not going to go over every feature here because there's a bunch. As you can see, we have Kubernetes, node balancers, firewalls, images, volumes, and so on. I might go over some more in a moment, but what I want to do is kind of focus here on the Linode instances. And we're going to go ahead and create a server manually first, and then we'll go ahead and look at automating that. And someone asked, do all servers use Linux? Most do, not all. There's Windows Server. Windows Server market share seems to be declining, but it's not declining super fast. But last I looked, I'm pretty sure Linux was at 70-something% when it comes to server adoption. Now, when it comes to desktops and laptops, it's really hard to quantify because not all installations are counted. So if somebody says Linux only has 1% market share on laptops and desktops, they're not lying to you. That's actually the metric, but 1% is just how many are reporting in. I mean, you really don't know how many are out there. There's no way to know. There's no, with most of the distributions, licensing to keep track of to let you know that. But we can tell from servers that are out in the wild by just taking a look at the site. There's actually a way to find out what operating system is run on that server. And something like 70% of servers run Linux. All the servers on Linode run Linux because they are a Linux-focused cloud server provider. So what I'm going to do now is create a Linode instance, which is their verbiage for a virtual machine. And we have here choose a distribution. So there are a ton of distributions here, as you can see. So you should be able to see my list right here. Let me know if the font size isn't large enough. I could try to crank it up a bit for you if you guys want me to. But we have Alma Linux 8, which is an enterprise distribution. I have all the videos on my channel that can go over some of these. Alpine Linux, Arch Linux, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, it goes on and on. And this here is sometimes it could be a very overwhelming thing for someone who's new to Linux, like which distribution should I go with? That's a valid question, right? You want to know which one is the best one. Well, there's no such thing as a best one. Each one of these is for a different use case. For example, Alpine Linux is super small. And when I say super small, it's not a big file size. The entire operating system, distribution and operating system are effectively the same thing. It's a very small size. So Alpine Linux will fit on like really small devices. Containers, for example, will often run Alpine. Alpine is usually not something you'd install on a server directly, although you can. In cloud servers, you can do that. Arch Linux is pretty advanced, I would say. It's not something I would recommend anybody start with unless you have patience, because Arch Linux is basically do everything yourself. And some people like that. If you're the type of person that likes to put a puzzle together, you like to see how things work and tinker, you will love Arch Linux to death. But if you're easily frustrated and you're just starting out, I don't really think Arch Linux is the best way to go at the beginning, but keep it on your radar though, because it is a popular one. CentOS is used on a lot of servers. That's primarily what CentOS is for. Debian is used with servers as well, but it's a general purpose distribution. Could also be used on your laptop or desktop to replace Windows or Mac if you wanted to. I'm not telling anyone to do that unless you are ready to do that. I will be having a Linux Switchers live stream this week to help people switch to Linux that will be wanting to do that. It's going to be on the YouTube channel. Anyway, Fedora, pretty much the same as Debian, but the software is newer. It's laptops, desktops. You can install it on the server if you want to. Gen 2 is advanced. Rocky Linux is server specialized. Ubuntu, my personal favorite, that's what we're going to be going with. It's also general purpose, has a huge, huge footprint in servers. It's ridiculous. I don't even have the numbers, but Ubuntu is going crazy. LTS stands for long-term support. That's usually what you'll run at a company. There's a new LTS every 2 years. So actually 2204 will be out this April. That's how the version numbers play out. First digit is the year. Second digit is the month. So Ubuntu 2004 LTS came out in 2020, specifically in April. So LTS is supported for 5 years. Supported means security updates, and that's important. Non-LTS, meaning you don't see LTS next to it, it's supported for 9 months, which is why companies generally don't use it. It's usually for those that want bleeding edge to test what's coming in the next LTS. But as far as, most companies are just going to stick to LTS. That's just the way it is. And that's what I'm going to do as well. So if you're following along with me, what I've done so far is I've clicked on Linodes and I chose Ubuntu 2004 as the distribution. And if you're following along with me, that's what you'll do as well. Now, when you go to the region here, essentially what this means is that a cloud provider has data centers typically all over the place. And you might be wondering, well, which one should I choose then? Because, I could create my instance in Atlanta. I could create it in Singapore, for example. There's all kinds of things here. So where should I create it? So if you're creating a server that your customers will use or you will be using at your company that external customers will be using, generally you want the server to be wherever your customers are. So for example, if your clientele is in Toronto, then you might not want to actually put your server in Atlanta because there's a bigger distance here. So if your customers are in Toronto and the data center is in Toronto, then that's an easy choice. You want the data center closest to your users. If you are global, like Learn Linux TV is, then just choose the one that's closest to you. So at least you won't have as much latency to the instance yourself. But most of the time you won't notice a difference in speed. And there's really specialized reasons why you might care about this. For example, if your company is distributing video, then you probably want a server in every single region to make it so that the videos get to the people quicker. Anyway, moving on, because I just looked at the time and oh my gosh, I'm going to choose Toronto right now. And then we choose the plan. And this is basically how much power your server is going to have. Now, I recommend going to shared CPU, and you can start for as low as $5 a month. Get you 1 gig of RAM, 1 CPU, perfectly fine for what we're doing today. If you are planning on rolling out a business app and it requires a lot of RAM, I mean, you can go all the way up to 192 gigs of RAM. Oh my gosh. But it's $960 a month. So you can see how the prices kind of range depending on that. So I just chose the cheapest one because I'm a cheapskate. So that's what I'll do. So right for the Linode label, we could just call it like web server, whatever you want to name it. I'm going to kind of speed this up a little bit. And then for the root password, you're typing what you want your password to be. It's not expecting you to type a password you should already know. It wants you to create whatever you want it to be. So I'll just type mine. And it says fair. I think that's good enough. Anyway, VLANs and the rest of the features I'm not really going to go over. I'm just going to create the instance and kind of get this going. And right now it's being created. It says it's provisioning. So right now with what I've just done, I'm creating a server. It was that easy. Like literally, it's actually being created. So probably takes 1 to 2 minutes. I could probably maybe snag a few questions while I'm waiting for the provisioning to finish. If anyone has anything they want to pass along before it boots up. Yep, there is a link. Someone asked about free Linode credits. There is a link that has that information where you get $100 in credit and you'll sign up for an account. But you don't have to. Again, like I've mentioned before, if you want to just watch, it's fine. But if you want to follow along, that's fine too. And there it is on the screen. So if you don't already have that. Now it says it's booting. Let's go ahead and bring up the Lish console here. And now we're actually seeing the boot process of this server. So if it was a physical server and you were standing in front of it with a monitor, this is what you would see on the screen as it starts up. So can we run a custom OS? Yes. You can actually import images that you create locally of whatever distro, even if it's not supported. I believe it's using the DD command, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. Anyway, right here we have the server and we have some information that's kind of going through the screen. Long story made short, this is an app called Cloud Init. We're just going to wait for this to finish. I think it's already done. So I just pressed enter on that. So we're going to log in with root. ROOT is the username. And the password is whatever you gave it when you created the instance. And if this works, and it did, we're logged in. So that's basically all I did. The text is really small here. I can't make the text bigger on this in particular, but if you don't have like a terminal app or something, you can use this. If you do have a terminal app, I'm going to close this. You don't have to close this though. We have an IP address right here. So everyone's going to have a different IP address. And I have a terminal here. Let me just close out of what I'm working on. And all right, so What you're seeing right now is my terminal app. So obviously, if you're using a terminal app, yours will not look like this because I customized the heck out of mine. So what I'm going to do, just to show you what it looks like, and on Mac, you could totally do this if you're running on Mac, if you have a terminal. You could just type the username, which is root, and then you paste in the IP address of your instance just like that. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. So SSH is the standard way of remotely managing Linux, or at least the closest standard that we actually have. And what this allows you to do, and it's simply just SSH space, the username, in our case root, at, and then the IP address of the instance there. And yes, you can use PuTTY. Someone asked about PuTTY. It really doesn't matter what terminal you use. If you have access to SSH, it will work. If it doesn't work, if this command I'm about to run doesn't work for you, you could just use the Lish console. That's totally fine. So I'll just go ahead and press enter. The first time you connect to a server, it's going to ask you, are you sure? Yes, I am sure. So I'll say yes. And then I'll type in the password. And we are in. I am logged into the server right now, and I am going to create a web server right now. You might be thinking, well, there's no time for that. There is totally time, because literally it is super simple. We're going to run, if you're following along with me, apt update. And these are just manual commands. You don't have to memorize these. You'll learn them. Don't worry. Apt update just checks in and finds out what software is out there. Basically, Linux uses kind of like the App Store methodology, although they don't call it an App Store. Apt update is pretty much the equivalent of on your iPhone checking for new apps. That's basically what it's the equivalent of. And right now it's running, so we'll let this finish. There it goes. Usually this part only takes about a minute. And this doesn't really make any changes to the server. Again, it's just like checking the App Store, so to speak, or the repository, as it's called in Linux. And looks like we might have some networking issues going on here. So that's, you know what, things happen, so it's fine. We'll just let this finish. Then I might need to rerun this. And just so you guys know, these URLs like security.ubuntu.com, that's where the software is coming from. And usually it works perfectly fine. If there's any kind of like network outages on their end, so it wouldn't be Linode's end, it'd actually be Ubuntu's end in this case, if they're having anything going on there. So let's just go ahead and run this again, see if it works out better. And now it looks like it's moving a little bit faster this time. Someone mentions that it looks like I'm hacking. Oh, you have no idea. You probably could record some of this and put this as B-roll for a movie, and they would totally, like, everybody would literally think that's what I'm doing. So, well, we do have an error here. I'm going to just do Control-C and break out. Let's run apt install, whoops, if I can actually spell it right, Apache 2. May not work for me. Let's go ahead and try. This is the next command for us right here. And of course, we do need to run the apt update. And I'll explain what the other command does here in a minute. We'll just see if this could finish. We'll give it one more chance. It looks like this time it actually went through, so that's good. Whatever issue is going on, it must be temporary. It even tells me that there's 49 packages to be upgraded. We're not going to do that right now. But what I am going to do is run apt install. So the first command was apt update. Again, that just checks into the App Store. Last time I used that term, it basically synchronizes with the repository where software is located. Linux software is downloaded from a repository server, which is online. So apt update just kind of refreshes that. Next, we go ahead and install a package if we know the name of it already, and I do. So cheat sheet, the package is going to be Apache 2. So when I do apt install, apt is the tool that installs packages, packages being another word for software. A keyword could be install if you want to install something, remove if you want to get rid of it. In this case, I want to install something. And what I want to install is Apache. Apache 2 is a package name. Apache is a web server software, and you will see that very shortly here. So press enter, and there's going to be dependency packages. That's totally normal. If you call for one package and it requires other things in order for it to work, then apt will know that and make sure that everything you need is going to be installed alongside with what you've asked for. Even if you didn't ask for these other things are required for Apache. So that way we don't have to try to figure out what all packages we need. We install one and it figures out the rest, which is great. And it didn't used to do that. As a matter of fact, Linux, when I started, you had to do that yourself, and that was not fun. But thankfully, that is not something that you have to do anymore. That is not a problem anyone here will run into. So looks like it's taken a minute here to download. So if there's any questions, I might snag a few of those. And it looks like some more of that. There's some kind of networking thing here. So what I'm going to do, try this one more time, and if it doesn't go through, is anyone else having the same problem like I am, if you're following along with me? Just wanted to check and see if it's just me. Looks like it's downloading. While this is running, I'll give you guys the most amazing way ever, at least in my opinion, to find out if a problem is just you or if it's the other end. And while I'm trying this for a third time, because a third time's a charm, I'll tell you what that secret way is. And this is going to sound surprising. Check Twitter. Seriously, I'm not even kidding. If you go on Twitter, like let's say, for example, your ISP is Comcast, you're having some kind of outage with a service, search your area and the thing. It could be Comcast, for example, and sort it by latest tweets. Because if other people are having a problem, so if you're having an internet problem, you could use this on the phone, for example, you will see a bunch of people complaining, and you'll know right then and there, because people complain within seconds. We love to complain, right? So that's one way you could quickly tell if a problem is you or everyone, is if other people are also complaining on Twitter. That's like the best way to find out. So I am going to reboot this instance. So technical difficulties, I just type reboot on that, and it's going to reboot. I'll give it about a minute to come back. And what I'll do is actually ping it. And what that's going to do is just keep pinging and pinging and pinging. And then when it's back online, we'll know. And as a matter of fact, check the console here. We should see that it's going down. It's already down. So when it starts booting up, we'll see it boot up. So just see what happens. So any moment is going to kick off the boot, usually within 1 minute. So all right, so while that boots up, I'll answer a question and we'll get going. So that screen we see here is just basically idle screen, if you will. So it does take longer when you reboot from the command line for whatever reason. So we'll just go back in here and let it load. There it is. So it's already starting back up for me. So we know that it's starting back up. So any minute now, this ping is going to start showing some results. Right now it's doing absolutely nothing. But this is how I watch and see when something's back online. Now, in the meantime, if anyone wants to follow along with me, then I recommend downloading Terraform for your operating system. Not required, you could just watch, but if you wanted to follow along with me, we're going to kind of move a little quickly here. But if you want to follow along, you download Terraform. They have it for Mac, Windows, Linux as well. So, and while we're waiting for that to come alive, I believe if I Google, I think it's terraform.io. Let me double check that though. And we will download right here. So you have your different platforms basically. And it's detecting that I'm on Linux, so that's why it went to here. But if you have like, Windows, obviously you can download whichever. Mac OS, you download whichever. And we'll go ahead and run that. But meanwhile, go ahead and wait for this to finish. It looks like that is done. Let's try to restart the ping again. Someone asked if you have to open ports. By default, I'm actually glad that someone asked that. It's all ports are open, but that doesn't mean that anyone can access any port, because if you don't have anything running, then there's nothing to access at a port. But there are firewalls here, and you could configure that, which is always a great idea. You don't want to allow anyone to access your server unless you absolutely need them to be able to do so. But for whatever reason, we have firewalls here if you need to do that. Otherwise, it's open by default. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's a web server. If you're hosting a website, you kind of want that to be open because you want everybody to go there. Otherwise, what's the point of hosting a website? Unless you want it to be an internal website, you might create a firewall rule here that will enable you to limit access to that. Let me just make sure I have the right IP address, and I do. So what I'm going to do right here is actually remove this instance, and we will create one with automation, because that's the whole point. That's the reason why we are here. So what I'm going to do, and I have some sample files that I will walk you through. We're going to create some text files here. And it doesn't matter what text editor you use. You could use a GUI editor, a command line editor. I'm just going to use Vim because that's what I'm used to. But inside the infrastructure class, I have a number of files here. And what we'll do, we go to example 1. What we're going to do first is edit provider.tf. So that's the name that we're going to give the text file, provider.tf. So I'll open that up in an editor. And I typed nano out of habit from doing videos all day. So here we have one of the files here. It's a provider file. So as you can see, the file name for this text file, provider.tf, as long as it ends in .tf, it technically doesn't matter what you call it, but it does have to end in .tf. I like to call it provider.tf because that's what we're configuring. Somebody asked me what shell I'm using, and it's Bash, for those that are curious. I just heavily customize it. So Terraform is able to create instances on many different cloud platforms, and not even just cloud platforms. I mean, you could be using VMware on a physical server, and Terraform can do it, literally, or a physical server that's not even a hypervisor. It doesn't even matter. The way it does this is that Terraform has what's called a provider or providers. There's a bunch of these. So we are using the Linode/Linode provider, and this is the version that we're using right here. This is from Linode's documentation, so they mentioned to use that version, so that's what I'm using here. So basically what you could do is write this out as I have it. I have actually uneven indentation here. We'll ignore that, but basically what you can see is we have different sections that are going to be in brackets. So required providers, we're setting a provider named Linode to be equal to this source, because we need this provider. If we were using Amazon Web Services or another provider, we would use a different provider for that platform. So if your cloud provider is not Linode, you'd use a different one. And a lot of the syntax is actually specific to the provider. So don't think that you could grab what I'm doing here and run it in AWS. You can with some modifications that are beyond the scope, but we're going to stick to Linode in this example. But if you had a different system you were configuring, then you could do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this one. I can always go back. I want to show you guys some additional things here. So what we're going to do is look at the next file. And the next file that I'm going to edit is, I just called it webserver.tf, although we're not actually going to create a web server here. So what I'm going to do is actually remove this, and we'll get the key, okay? Each one of you will have a different key, and I'll explain that in a moment. But right here, we're basically referencing the provider that we created. So we created a provider named Linode in the other file, and then it pulled from source the Linode/Linode provider. And the token is the API key. And what that is going to do is allow you via the command line to interact with your account, because we've seen that we went up here and we were able to create a Linode instance, even though technical difficulties aside, we were able to do that. Now we can use this without using the console at all. The only exception is we need to grab that key. So what I'm going to do is take a quick detour here and show you where to get that key. So if you go up here to your username, and then you go down to API tokens, I'm going to revoke the one that I was just playing around with right here. So let's get rid of it. And we'll create a new one. And I'm just going to call mine infra, I guess. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Now down here, you are giving it permission to access different parts of your account. You might be tempted to do read and write straight down. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Because if this key was to fall into the wrong hands, then whoever has this key, they could do everything that you give permission to do here. So if you were to give it read write to your entire account, guess what? If this is a company's service like Linode platform, they could just wipe out your whole account. You don't want that. So we're going to leave everything on none unless we need it. And specifically what we need is we need read-only to images. There's built-in images with Linode that we'll be using, so we're not going to be creating one, but we do need to read it. So that just allows Terraform, and that's what's going to use this is Terraform. It's going to read the images. And also, we need to give read and write to Linodes, because we want this Terraform script to create a server for us. It can't do that if we don't give it access to do that. If we give it read-only, it would be able to know what servers we have, but it's not going to be able to create one. So we need to give it the create access. That's the only change we're going to make. We're going to put images on read-only, Linodes on read-write, just like that. So you can call it whatever you want. Again, that doesn't matter. So I'm going to create the token. And here we have the key. This will only be shown once. You can never retrieve this again once you close it. Okay. So if if you're not able to jot this down and it gets closed, you have to create a new one. You could revoke the old one and recreate it again. You're never going to be able to get to see this again. And also, you should never show this key into the public. So technically, what I'm doing right now is not a good idea. The only reason why I don't care is because this is just a demo account. So it's fine. I'll be deleting this afterwards. But if you are recording a video like I do, or adding this to your notes, you never want to include the personal access token anywhere public. Just keep it in a very safe place. Just remember that. Just a word to the wise there. So I copied it. I'm going to close it. And then back to our file, right here under token, I'm going to paste that in right there. Now, as an aside, technically, you shouldn't include the token in the script either. There's a way to have it as a variable that's outside the scope of what we're doing today. But to keep it simple, I'm just pasting it right here. As you get more knowledgeable, you would actually include this in a variable outside of the file. So that way, someone doesn't get a hold of this file and have your key, essentially. But we'll just pretend like that's not there. But basically, just go ahead and copy down everything here. And let me know if you guys need me to go back to the provider file. I can go back to that one if you'd like and show you that one. But I'm going to leave this up on the screen and let me know if you guys have it copied down and on your end. So I'll give, I don't know, 2 minutes, unless someone needs more time. Just ask me to extend, I will, because I understand some people are, some people type faster than others. Now, while I'm waiting you guys are copying down, I'm going to explain a little bit more about what this is doing. So again, with this section up here, we're just referencing the provider that we referenced in the other one. Now we have a resource section. So we're going to create a Linode instance. That's the type of resource we want. We're going to call it my Linode. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it web server. Label is what is shown in the Linode dashboard if you're to log in. So that's why that's there. The image. Well, here I have Debian 11. I kind of forgot that I had that in the example. It doesn't matter. Ubuntu is fine. Debian's fine. And basically, this is going to set it up with Debian 11. Functionally, there's going to be no difference, though. Region, US East. You could change that if you want to, or just leave it the same as just an example. And that's just the data center where it's located. Type. The documentation for Linode has a list of all these things here, so you don't have to actually remember any of this. They have a list of the types, but this is the $5 instance. That's what that's referring to right here, because I'm trying to, not get you guys a huge bill, the $900 a month instance. This is a $5 a month instance, which will definitely fit within that $100 credit. Password, obviously, it's not a good practice to put clear text passwords. This is just kind of how you start, and then later on you learn how to do variables, and that's the better place to put these. Generally speaking, with Terraform, you'll have a protected file that very few people can access that contains these, these values here, like your password and your token. That's outside of the script that your script will reference, and you keep that secret. But again, this is just starting out. So I'm going to just go ahead and save the file. If you're on Vim, is :WQ. And I'm going to bring up the other one more time here. And that's the provider file there. So I'll give you guys like a minute just to make sure that you have this one. Again, this is just how we tell Terraform which cloud provider we want to work with. So this one is set up for Linode. We're creating that. So leave this up for a bit more. Let me know if anyone needs more time. It seems like you guys are pretty sharp, actually. So all good. All right. So I'm going to close out of here. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to actually run this. Now, here's what we have to do. So don't follow along with me right now. I'm just going to copy the file right here. So essentially what happens is when you download Terraform, you'll have this binary like that. It'll usually be in a zip file. There could even be like an installer, but I just download it in place because what that allows you to do is just // if you're on a command line like on Mac or Windows or whatever, you can just do that. And you could just download it right into your Linode instance and then create another Linode instance if you'd like. But essentially, it works here locally. I've actually moved mine to user local bin. So that way it's available system-wide. So we have Terraform right here. That's where I put it. But you don't have to put it anywhere. You could just run it right where it is. Just download it and then / Terraform, just like that. That's perfectly valid. And specifically what we're going to do is we're going to run Terraform plan. So if you're in the directory, where you've downloaded Terraform, you can run / Terraform and then the keyword plan. And we'll go back through this if anyone needs me to. But when I press enter, and this is important, what it's going to do is actually look at your account. With that key, it was able to connect to the account. Check this out. Terraform plan is like a preview mode. Nothing is going to happen. I repeat, nothing is going to happen from plan. That's going to tell you what Terraform would do if you were to tell it to do it. Okay, we haven't told Terraform to do anything other than a plan. And a plan is just as checking into your account and it's checking your code to see if a resource exists on the cloud provider that matches the code that you've written. If not, it's going to tell you what it's going to do. And we don't have this instance named my Linode. So if I go up here to Linode and I go to Linodes, I don't have a server with that name here. You see I have new server, Ubuntu server, Web01, Web02. But I don't have one called my Linode, okay? Linode _ instance dot is just the internal naming or namespace for that, but it's looking for this and it doesn't find it. So since Terraform looked at this, it saw that we want to create an instance called my Linode or whatever you want to call it. It's right there in the code. It doesn't exist, so it needs to be created. So these plus symbols, it means it's going to do that. It's going to create the instance and it's going to set these parameters, most of which we didn't set. And it's telling me overall it has to do one thing. Now, this is super important, okay? Because if this is production, it might say 1 to destroy. Right now it says 0 to destroy. That's good, okay? That's really good. But there are some situations that could happen that would trigger Terraform to delete your server. I repeat, delete your server and recreate it. And you'll know that it's going to do this if it tells you it's going to destroy something. Sometimes that might not be a problem. If it says it's going to change something or destroy something, you can look through everything here. It'll, have something other than a plus sign to let you know it's going to delete it. And if you're okay with this, like you get the expected result, we can continue. The reason why I mention this is because, again, if you're not careful, it might say that it's going to destroy something. Maybe it's something in production. Then you need to just maybe ask one of your teammates or something, hey, this wants to destroy something. What should I do? And get direction there. But since we don't have this, then it's not going to matter to us at all. So once you're okay with Terraform plan, what we're actually going to do is Terraform apply. Terraform apply is just like the plan, but it actually does it. It actually will create the server. Now, this is magic. This is when you are going to see why this is so freaking awesome. Notice I have 4 servers here, right? I'm going to run this. It's going to check in, and I have to say yes to have it do it. I'll press enter, and check this out. It's creating the server. Now, before I did it manually, I had to click like create Linode instance, fill this out, fill that out, put in this, put in that. I just ran one command off this script and it's creating the server. And in fact, check it out. It's right here at the top. It says it's provisioning. It's building the server via the command line right here. This is an example of infrastructure as code. This is what it all comes down to. I defined the end state for the server. I wanted a Debian 11 instance. I wanted it to be called my Linode, and it's making it happen. In fact, apply complete. It's done. And to prove that it's actually done, I'll launch the console and we have the server. It's still doing a little bit of boot up stuff here, but it's okay. It's almost done. And now we have a login prompt. How cool is that? Now, another thing that we can do, and don't follow along with me, guys, for what I'm about to do right now. If you're following along, you should do this eventually. But what I'm going to do is something kind of cool here. Terraform destroy. We want to be a Dalek and exterminate, right? We want to just destroy something. What Terraform destroy will do is it'll undo everything your script is telling Terraform to do. So if your script is telling Terraform, create a server, destroy will uncreate it. It'll destroy it, get rid of it. So don't follow along yet. I'm just going to do it on my end because I can easily redo this. Terraform destroy. I pressed enter. And I have to say yes to confirm. It's destroying it. And I'll close out right here. It's already gone. We're down to the 4. It destroyed it, just like that. So I was literally able to control my cloud platform. And, think of it. I could roll out a company server here via code. I could destroy it, recreate it at will. So let's just say a big bad hacker comes in, takes over the server, obliterates it, makes it do something it's not supposed to do. That's no problem. I'll just destroy it. I'll just delete it, gone, and recreate it from the script, and it'll be like nothing ever happened. And it'll take me all of like 5 minutes to do that. So let me go ahead and create it again. I'll do Terraform apply. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to say no. I'm going to have you guys tell me what I should name the server. What do you think I should call this particular server? Right now, I am calling it my_Linode. Let's give it a cool name. Does anyone have a cool name? So someone has Meow. I like that. I like that name actually. So that's the winner so far. Does anyone want to challenge that name? Going once, going twice. All right. I'm just going to call it that. That is a cool name. I should have a server named Meow. I mean, everyone should have a server named that. Now notice that I'm setting the password here. That's the actual login password. The root is the user, and that's the password when you want to log into it. But I just changed these 2 lines right here to Meow. So let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to save the file. I'm going to run Terraform plan again. And what? It says 1 to add. Let me go ahead and run that now. Terraform apply. And then we'll say yes. We do want it to do the thing. So do the thing. It says it's creating it right now. And we're just waiting for it to pop up. This is going to be so fun. Watch it. We have 4 servers. It's just going to show. I'm not sure if it automatically refreshes. Oh, it does. Yeah, right there. See, the server just popped up. You see it right here, meow, and it's provisioning. So it's actually creating our server right now via code, which is awesome. And from here, I mean, you could create the databases. You can make it create apps for you. There's all kinds of cool things. I'll be doing more. I believe it's tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, at 1 p.m. Eastern time. There's going to be another session. So if anyone wants to join that one, we can go even further. Now, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use Terraform Destroy. Now, here's why, okay? I want to be very clear on this, and this is really important for everyone to know. If you have resources in your Linode account after the trial period is over, it will bill you for it. Now, $5 a month isn't all that bad, to be honest, but if you're not using it, you want to make sure you get rid of whatever. You could just click right here and click delete to get rid of the server. And that should be all you need to do. You could check like volumes and see if you have any. I don't. Linode only bills you for what you're actually using. So if you delete everything, you can keep the account open. You won't even have a bill. Or you could be like me. If you want to destroy everything that we've done today, we could run Terraform Destroy, and that'll do it for us. So that way, I'm not going to be billed for this instance anymore. So we have the server right here. I'm going to press enter, and let's watch it go away. And it's gone. So I was able to do that without having to touch I didn't even have to open a web browser other than to get that key. So I am going to copy these scripts into a somewhere you guys will be able to get to it. If you want to look at my examples and steal them and play around with them. I'll just follow me on Twitter right there on the screen at Jay the Linux guy. You see my Twitter handle. So just follow me on there. I don't know if it's going to be today. I'm going to try to do it today. Follow me there, and I will post something like a link to where you can get these files, so that way you guys can continue to play with it. And I will try to answer questions there as well. Now we have like 8 minutes that I could see here. So I'm going to say, if you have some questions, anybody, go ahead and ask me. Can you share your Twitter ID here? Let me grab my other keyboard. I think I can. Actually, no, I don't think I can. Someone could post that for me. So it's just at Jay the Linux guy. There it is. So I see someone's already done that. So there I am on Twitter. Go ahead and follow me there, and I will make sure to do this. Now, I didn't get a chance to go over Git. I was just going to do a quick thing about that. I have a video on my channel, though. If you guys want to go to my YouTube channel, search for Git. And I have a explainer on that. You can watch that video and learn about Git. So how to sync the changes if I update state files? That is such a smart question. That is a hard, I don't want to say hard question. It's a debated question because there's many different ways you could do this. I've seen some people have a shared file server way where they, everyone's pulling from the same central storage in the back end. That is kind of a complex topic, and it gets very advanced, and it's just going to be hard to explain that without like explaining a bunch of other things leading up to it. But I would say that that's a great question. The fact that you're asking that question means your mind is in the right place for sure. Someone said it's linux.tv. It's learnlinux.tv. Well, actually, that's MLH. So yeah, that needs to be corrected to learnlinux.tv. There it is. Because that is the website for the channel. On YouTube, it's Learn Linux TV. And maybe you guys will be among my subscribers today. That'd be so cool. You could help me reach 300,000 subscribers. I think I'm at like 230,000 something right now. Right. So we have like 6 minutes left. So if you guys want to ask some additional questions, if I don't see any questions in 2 or 3 minutes, then we'll go ahead and end it. But if you guys have questions, then I will provide answers. Meanwhile, let's switch the camera. Perfect. Okay. No, you are awesome. I love people. I love Linux, so it all works out. All right. So still time for questions, guys. How does Linode stand out from others? So to be completely fair, all the cloud providers are good. You know, I'm not going to throw one under the bus or anything like that and be like, you shouldn't use X because of Y. Everyone has their pros and cons. What I personally like about Linode is that I feel like my business, because it is a business, I run on Linode, I feel like my bill is cheaper. It's easier to understand the bill because with AWS and some others, I mean, you have like these weird things where you have a monthly fee for the server, but it's more money during certain hours. And then you add a little bit of money for your bandwidth, plus this, plus that, and just becomes kind of complicated on AWS. Now, that might not matter to you guys though, because depending on, you know, if you get a job doing this and if AWS is the one you go with, it might not even be your job to worry about it. I mean, you might have to worry about the bill from the standpoint that you're just paying attention to what you're doing, but you could actually have like an accounting team that's looking at it. So you may not have to deal with it. Me personally, I'm a one-man show here, so I like the simplicity. And Linode, I feel like they do a really great job with the Linux community because they're in the Linux community. They live and breathe it. They're all about it. A lot of other cloud providers, they're kind of generalists. Like, but that might actually work for you because if your company is a Linux Windows mix, right? You might actually want Azure because you know you need your Linux, or excuse me, you need your Windows instances, and Azure has Linux as well. So you basically just kind of choose against the pros and the cons. But for me personally, Linode works the best. It's again, my bill's lower, so it's fast. It works for me, and they've become a partner, so it's been a great relationship so far. I don't know about someone mentioned about the origins. I'm not sure honestly about that. Wish to continue this session for 5 hours straight. You could just play all the videos on my YouTube channel, like straight through. Check out the playlist there, especially because the Ansible series has gone over very well. A lot of people like that one, and Ansible will teach you how to go a level above Terraform, which is always good there. So which device works more smoothly, Windows or Mac OS? So that question, I'm going to give you the answer, but it's not the answer you expect me to say. All operating systems are good. All platforms are good. If macOS wasn't good, it wouldn't exist. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people don't like it. That's fair. Some people don't like it. But macOS exists because it is useful to a lot of people. So does Windows and Linux. It's not a question about what is best because there's no such thing. It's what is best for you. So what I recommend is you try them all out. And when I say try, I don't mean like try for 5 minutes and call it good. I mean like try Linux on a spare computer for a couple of weeks straight. Get a good feel for it. Or if you don't use Mac, borrow a Mac, use that for a while. Actually use it. Like, don't try for a few minutes, actually use it, and you will discover which is best for you in particular. That's what matters because there is no OS or platform that's the best for everybody. If there was, then there wouldn't be any other platform. There'd just be the platform. So, yep. Yep, it's all about preference. That's absolutely the case. Or use them all. I mean, you could have a Windows computer, a Linux computer, a Mac computer, and just kind of in my opinion, just totally immerse yourself into technology, which is always a great thing to do. I mean, why just use one thing? If you're a technologist like I am, that means you like everything. You want to use all the things. You want to use all the computers. You have a Chromebook, you have a Windows computer, you have all those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, just totally immerse yourself into technology because that works out better in the working world because you are a more of a subject matter expert, or you're very knowledgeable if you have knowledge that branches out in multiple directions, and you're actually more valuable because you have a bigger understanding of technology in general. So with that said, we're coming up on time right now. So thank you guys so much. I will be back again tomorrow with more. If you want to join me tomorrow, in the meantime, check out my YouTube channel, buy my book. Definitely appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. And for those of you that are interested, I have the presentation tomorrow as well. Some of the same things, but there's going to be some new things as well. So it would be worth watching if you, even if you've gone through this one. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. We're so big. Thanks so much, Jay. We really appreciate your time here. And, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. As far as everyone here is concerned, I will go ahead and get into the swag drop. So, Jay, once again, thanks so much, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right, y'all. So we are here now for the swag drop. Thank you, Jay. Once again, amazing session. Tozendo, Nozendo, Rosendo here, and I am supposed to pick someone for this amazing swag drop. And if you see me, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and randomly scroll through the chat here, and then I am going to pick a random message to highlight. And basically, if you've been, there you go. If you've been following along, if you've been super active on the actual chat, that means that you would have had a larger chance of being picked for the swag drop. So 45145V, that you are the winner of the swag drop. So take a screenshot of this, hit us up on Discord. Yeah, that's you. Yeah, that is you. That is absolutely you. You are the winner. So take a screenshot, make sure you hit us up on Discord, open up a ticket. Someone will pick it up. Just make sure to mention that you were part of the swag drop, the secret, special, super exclusive swag drop for the Linode Workshop. And yeah, someone will get back to you. Wow, surprised how to come. Yeah, exactly. So take a screenshot of this and open up a ticket on Discord, and someone will get back to you. So yeah, no problem. Thanks so much, y'all. Really, such a pleasure to see so many folks interested in open source and Linux and everything that Jay was talking about. I think he's an extremely knowledgeable person. So super glad that y'all were able to enjoy. If you are continuing to have any issues with signing up for Linode, make sure that you open up a ticket with us. If you don't have a credit card, currently, there is no other way to kind of get around that credit payment, but what you can do is use an alternate cloud provider. I can't recommend any off the top of my head, but I'm sure you're well aware of the other cloud providers that we have in our ecosystem. Definitely use something that you are able to access currently. Outside of that, if you are able to actually put in your credit card information through Linode, but you're still having issues getting signed up, feel free to open up a ticket or reach out to their support to their support channel. It's located directly on the dashboard itself. You can open a ticket directly through them, or you can open up a ticket through Discord, and we can talk to our points of contact there. So yeah, once again, thanks so much, y'all. We will see you again on the next broadcast. All right.